I want to speak today to the very messy experience of learning how to deeply anchor ourselves in the here and the now where life is lived, and feeling our ego freak out and panic at the same time. And it's what I often think about when I'm witnessing it, that wrestling between, I'm receiving the peace and the calm that's found right now, right here. I'm dropping the what ifing and the woulda, coulda, shoulda, and instead I'm present. And then the ego freaks out and it starts to panic. And my friends, this is a very normal human experience. Welcome back to the Daily Surrender. Today's episode is coming to you straight from the middle of my own growth edge, as many of my episodes do. This is not me teaching from the top of some expertise mountaintop. It is me genuinely walking right beside you. A few steps ahead in some places, a few steps behind in others, but always learning what it means to live as a human with a soul that's remembering the divine. This morning, as I was sitting in my quiet time, I was being very still. I was sitting in silence, just simply being present. And as I often do in the morning, I asked God, what do you want me to see today? What do you want me to hear today? What do you have for me today? And what I heard was very simple and very powerful. And the motivation behind me bringing this episode to you, what I heard was, be here, Jen. Be present. Continue to return into the presence. And that honestly is the whole journey, isn't it? It's what we're all doing. It's what we're all remembering, to be present, to come back to the here and now, to return to where life is lived, which is in the precious present moment of here and now. It's not perfection. That's not what we're striving for. It's not certainty on all of the details of the path. That's impossible. The details are not ours to know, they're God's. It's not getting it right, even though so often our ego fights really, really hard to get it right. It's the truth that God is here in this breath, in this moment, in this body, this vessel, and in our unfolding. God is not in the future that we're trying to control. God is not the past that we're replaying over and over in our heads. Not the shoulds, not the what ifs, not the what next that so often we play over and over and over and over again in our head, or at least I do. God is in the here and the now. And yet, being human, we forget that probably hundreds of times a day. So I want to speak today in this podcast episode to the very, very human, very messy experience of deepening into presence, dropping, really learning how to drop into the present moment of here and now, learning how to deeply anchor ourselves in the here and the now where life is lived, and feeling our ego freak out and panic at the same time, which is something that I've been experiencing more of lately, but that's something that's not new to me. It's something that comes and goes, ebbs and flows. And again, that's part of the motivation for this podcast because I know I'm not alone. I've been coaching for almost 15 years and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, and I can attest to the human experience of this wrestling, which is what it feels like for me. And it's what I often think about when I'm witnessing it in one of my clients, that wrestling between, ah, I'm receiving the peace and the calm that's found right now, right here. I'm dropping the what ifing and the woulda, coulda, shoulda. And instead I'm present. And then the ego freaks out and it starts to panic. And my friends, this is a very normal human experience. So if it's something that you have experienced or you are experiencing, you're not alone. And again, it's normal, but let's talk through it because talking through it helps us to understand ourselves better. It helps us to recognize the patterning and to not tether ourselves or define ourselves by the patterning. Because one of the things that can happen when this dynamic is at play and the ego is panicking, because we're stepping more and more into presence, is we can start to beat ourselves up because this is happening or because it's happening again, or, oh my gosh, I've done so much work on myself and I've been doing so good. What the heck is happening? Am I backsliding back down the mountain? You're not. You're not. So if you're here listening to this podcast, the chances are that you're on a path of awakening. There's no coincidence that you're here listening to me share this. There's a reason. There's something inside of you that feels very drawn to this message. You are remembering your divine identity. You are shedding many layers and layers of your own old conditioning, programming from this world, old stories that you may have carried around since childhood, fears, old versions of yourself. And you're in process. You're in the process of remembering who and whose you are, that divine spark, that God particle that is inside of you, that you've come from. And with every single layer that you shed, your soul expands, your light increases, and your nervous system is softening. There may be moments of freak out, which is part of that ego panic that I'm talking about, but you can trust that you are softening, you are healing, you are carving out new neural pathways that are healthier, that are grounded and rooted in truth, that help you to live more and more and more in peaceful existence, in the calm, in the security of knowing who and whose you are. Your capacity for love is growing and expanding. And your ego also occasionally freaks out. So let's talk more about that human and holy dance. That sounds a lot softer, doesn't it, than the wrestling? Although, I mean, again, if I'm being completely honest, oftentimes it does feel like I'm wrestling. I know that to be true for myself when I was deep in my work with my mentor, Molly, whom, if you are a faithful follower of the Daily Surrender, you probably know Molly by now. When Molly and I were deep in our work together, she really stood for me as God with skin on. It's not that I made her God, but God worked in and through her. And I knew that and I felt that. And she provided me with the opportunity to work through a lot of the crap and the stuff and the hard and the messy and the sticky that came up for me. And I would bring it to her. And it was such a blessing to bring it to her. And her and I would wrestle a lot. She would joke with me that it felt like she was wrestling a goat up an icy mountain. And You may have heard me mention this before. She would text me pictures jokingly, lovingly of a goat and a goat with sunglasses just to bring a little levity to my wrestling. And what was occurring for me and what I'm talking about today is this dance that we all go through as our soul is expanding and the ego contracts. It feels very much like the birthing process. Anybody listening who has birthed a child knows this process intimately. There's an expansion and then there's a contraction, but we actually need both of those things to birth the baby into the world. So the soul is saying, we're safe. God is here. There is enough time. The soul is eternal. The journey of the soul is eternal. There's no timeline here. And yet the ego is whispering or sometimes screaming, it's not working. It's not happening fast enough. You're not doing enough. Something is wrong. Hurry up. Get this right. Be done. Get there already. Why are you not there already? You've done all of these things. You've brought so much into your conscious state of awareness. You've done all of this work. You've invested all of this time. And the temptation is to take out the metaphorical baseball bat and beat the crap out of ourselves. Whether that's with our thoughts or whether that's stepping into old patterns of behavior that used to be our method of controlling things and testing them out. Well, it's not working. I'm going to just go back to pushing myself, grinding, hustling, which is a form, again, of control and a form also of keeping ourselves in line with that metaphorical baseball bat. As we're going through all of this process, the soul itself is starting to feel more and more spacious. It's taking up more and more space. And as it's starting to take up more and more space, what's happening is the ego is feeling really threatened. I want to interject here in this conversation and just emphasize that our ego is not our enemy. The ego itself is not the enemy. The ego is where the enemy works, attacks, whether you label that Satan, adversary, the devil. That's where it's coming from, so to speak. Again, that attack, I'm using air quotes. But the ego is there for us. So without ego, we actually wouldn't have this beautiful dance between being human and growing and expanding and remembering who we are and returning to true essence of self, returning home to the divinity from which we came, from which we were created. So in that moment, as the soul is expanding out and the ego is contracting, it's incredibly uncomfortable. And we get to choose what we are anchoring onto. This is important. And I want you to grab on to this part of what I'm talking about here today. As I said at the beginning of this episode, I'm coming to you on my own growth edge. I'm incredibly aware of the ways that I'm continuing to expand and grow, the ways that I'm continuing to remember. And the more that I remember, the more that my ego contracts. So in my remembering of truth, there's an expansion and then there's this contraction, and that contraction doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. But just like in actual physical labor, again, for those of you who have given birth, you know that the expansion and contraction, that contraction has purpose. We need it. We can choose to properly lean into it. We can choose to breathe into it and use it for good, or we can fight it. And when we fight it, it elongates the process. It's not because we're supposed to be getting any of this perfect. There is no such thing here as absolute perfection in our human journey. It's not that we should know better And then when this is happening, we're failing or messing up the process at all. Again, this is just the human journey of remembering who we truly are. It's all part of the process, my friends. And that's why I really wanted to bring this to you in this episode. So, for me, again, I told you at the beginning of the episode that this is my growth edge. This is something that is very top of mind for me because just the other day, I had a massive contraction. It was intense. I had woken up feeling really grounded. I was very clear. I feel very surrendered, very peaceful. I sat with God. I felt a lot of gratitude for my life. I felt a lot of gratitude for how far I've come on this journey of remembering, very present, peaceful, all the things, right? And then just a few short hours later, I'm doing some work. I open up social media, having a business like I do. I do use social media for my business. And oh my gosh, is social media like a complete, well, I'll just say it. It's a mind fuck, right? Like, and it can play with you. And I'm aware of this. And I have boundaries around it. And still, it messes with me sometimes. So it messed with me. I opened up the social media. I saw some of my numbers dropping. I saw myself losing more followers, not gaining followers. The same thing can happen off of social media. It can happen with my email list. I could put out a podcast episode that I'm so proud of, that I love, that I can't wait for the whole world to hear. And my numbers are low compared to a previous episode. And so I watch my numbers and they're dropping. And then I think, okay, well, the responsible thing is to take a look at all of my numbers, right? Like, let's do an audit here. And I'm seeing it across the board. I'm seeing decreasing views, decreasing engagement, and instantly my ego starts to get pinged. And I start thinking the things, those self deprecating thoughts, pulling out the metaphorical baseball bat. I'm like, see, it's not working. Why are you bothering? You're investing all of this time and energy for what, Jen? Why? You're not like them. You're not chosen to be like them. Your message must not be important enough to get out into the world. You must not be important enough to be seen or heard. You are falling behind. Your voice isn't good enough. You're not good enough. Any of those thoughts sound familiar? And in that moment, that wave of discouragement hit me hard. It hit me so hard. And that was the contraction. And here's what I've learned. And what I really, really want you to hear is discouragement is not a sign of misalignment. It is a sign, actually, of an ego detox. I have been helping people in the functional wellness space for 15 years. All my training in functional medicine and naturopathy. And there were certainly years in my practice where I leaned much heavier into that. And so I'm very familiar with Herxheimer reactions, with detox reactions as toxins are leaving the body. And if they are leaving the body rapidly, the body can freak out, right? And people can get headaches and flu-like symptoms and aches. They can even get emotionally feeling very despondent and crying, right? So that's a physiological detox reaction. Well, we can have soulful detox reactions too. And that's really what is happening here as we're expanding out. And that ego is having that little momentary freak out. It's a detox. The ego is panicking right before the soul is expanding into that new level of trust. So we first start the expansion in our awareness. It's happening first in our ability to be aware of what doesn't serve us, to consciously say, I'm going to let that go. But we still have to do differently. We still have to show up and essentially integrate. So whether you're doing something really big and intentional, like a freedom journey. You've heard me talk about that here on the podcast. I've guided a lot of people in MDMA assisted therapeutic coaching sessions where they take a medication, it quiets the amygdala, and we go into the subconscious mind. And in 6 hours, it's like 10 years of coaching. And we're pulling out all this stuff. But on the other side of it and their everyday life is where the rubber really meets the road, where they're really going to continue to deeply groove those new neural pathways and step away from the old. And it can be very challenging. And a lot of resistance can show up in that period of time. Well, whether you do something like that or whether, you're just going about your day and you have a new revelation of truth and you decide that I'm no longer going to feed that old thought or that old behavior. Well, the actual transformation doesn't take place. The continuum to change has been started with the awareness. That's the first step to change. But the transformation happens when we experience. And so the first few times you experience anything and you do something different, whether it's a thought or an action, it's really uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. And essentially, we have to crowd out. I just said this to a client yesterday in a coaching session who's a new client of mine, and she's really reprioritizing her diet and eating healthy whole foods as God created to decrease inflammation in her body. And her body is very used to eating some processed, crappy foods. So I suggested we're going to crowd out with the good. Right. So psychologically, she doesn't get into a deprivation type state, but the body is still going to crave what it was used to for a while, just for a beat. Right. You might feel a little sluggish, achy, tired, headachy. Hang on, hang on. So the same here is applying to what we're doing with our soul expansion and the ego's engagement in it and the ego's part in it too. So in almost every single client that I work with, I see this dynamic in one way or another. I see clients making really massive shifts. They step into new layers of freedom, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all of the above, hopefully. They're feeling the divine more and more clearly. They feel more grounded. They feel more secure in who and whose they are. Their nervous system is calming. They're beginning to remember their true essence of self. They're starting to really feel more peaceful in their everyday. And then, and then the ego starts to panic. It starts whispering, this isn't happening fast enough. You're still uncomfortable. There's still symptoms there. You're not there yet, air quote. Why isn't everything fixed? Old patterns are starting to resurface and they think, what have I done all of this work for? Why is this still showing up for me? I must be doing something wrong. I need to go out there and start throwing the kitchen sink at me, and I need to take control of this, right? And they start to spiral and they interrupt the uncomfortable feeling of the contraction, the discomfort of the contraction, what they're doing with their spiraling and they're beating themselves up and pulling into their old ways of control, stepping into their old ways of control, is they're interrupting the discomfort and interpreting it as failure. They're using it as proof that they're broken, as evidence that they are not where they quote unquote should be, as if they know exactly where they should be and all the details of what it's going to take to get them there, right? And the truth is that they're exactly where they need to be. All of it is part of their unique process. There's nothing wrong, nothing. When we backslide, and I'm using that not as a word that it's what is actually happening, but it's what we perceive is happening. That's for us. We needed that to happen. We needed to revisit the old ways and to feel the pain of doing that. We needed to be reminded that we have choice in all things, right? The discomfort is the teacher. So if you can sit in the discomfort and be okay sitting in the discomfort instead of interrupting it with all of your old ways and your spiraling, The discomfort is going to teach you so much. It's the invitation. It's the proof, actually, of your evolution. Can you flip the script on it? The next time that your ego starts to freak out and you get triggered and there's a contraction and it's really uncomfortable, can you flip your script instead of saying that this is a bad thing, this shouldn't be happening, and write into the script, this is confirmation that I'm exactly where I need to be. Keep going, keep leaning in, ride the tidal wave of discomfort instead of fight it so I won't drown. I'm going to ride it and it's going to subside. I'm going to choose to trust it. Because in the discomfort, we walk even closer with the Creator. It is a massive invitation to lean in with trust and faith, to claim with certainty that our Creator, God, is all and is inviting us into the better life, that this is the path forward into the freedom that our soul is seeking. The closer that you are walking with the Creator, the more your ego realizes, oh my goodness, that it is no longer in charge. It's realizing, I am dying a slow death here of being the boss. Our egos are not the boss. We can choose to make them the boss, but they're not the boss. We're not firing them. They're not going away. They actually serve a purpose. But we are going to take away the power that we give to the ego, and we're going to return power to one, go back to all power to one, and bridge that gap of duality. So the invitation over and over is the return to presence. Over and over and over again, like I heard in my stillness when I was sitting with God, and I said, "What do you have for me?" And he said again to me, "Presence, Jen. It's presence." Being human means forgetting. Being spiritual means remembering. That's the spiritual path. Being awake, and again, I'm assuming that if you found this podcast and you chose to listen to it, you are someone who is on the path of awakening. You want to find more truth for yourself. You want to return to true essence of self. You want to experience the abundant life found in the surrendering of all else, right? And this process happens not once, not twice, but it's happening over and over and over again. Presence is not a state that we achieve. It's not like, ooh, I got it now. I nailed it. I got 100% on the test. I'm going to park it here and I'm done. I can just put my feet up for the rest of my existence. No, I'm sorry to break it to you, but no. Presence is a practice that we continue to return to over and over again. And every return grows our capacity to experience God now. Remember at the beginning of this episode, we talked about life being lived in the precious present moment of here and now? Yes, that. It's that. And as we grow our capacity to live in the precious present moment of here and now and experience the divine in the here and now, we are living more fullness of life. That's the abundant life. It's not a someday thing. It's not when life is perfect. It's not when I get the perfect job or when I have the income that I desire or the house or the partner or the number of children or the perfect health, whatever. It's here and it's now. It's in the middle of our mess. It's in the middle of our doubt. It is in the middle of our discomfort, my friends. It's in the middle of the ego's panic, that contraction. Presence is where God is, and presence is where peace lives. Presence is where our true identity is remembered. So we're practicing and we're getting stronger every day. So that discomfort is helping us get stronger. It's actually helping anchor truth more and more and more. It's helping us to become more present. As we're entering into yet another holiday season, how in the world did that happen? I think that this conversation is a wonderfully aligned conversation as we're in a season of presents, right? Gift giving. And as we're entering into the Christmas season, what I understand today more than I ever have before is the invitation to remember the real gift that Jesus brought into the world. And that gift is presence. Most of what we celebrate in today's modern culture with the holidays and Christmas is man-made, right? So going back to the roots of why we even do this, like who are we even celebrating, right? We're celebrating a man who didn't come to start a religion at all. He came to model for us the way to be. He came to model for us how to embody the Christ within. And Jesus did it, and he did it perfectly. He became Jesus Christ. And then he turned around and said, you can do all the things that I've done and greater. And how did Jesus do it? He did it through presence. He did it through embodiment. He did it through perfect union with God, the Father. None of what he did he attribute to him, the man. He always pointed back to the Father, always. And by fully embodying Christ, he was able to do all the things that we witnessed him doing when he was here on this earth. And we watched him resurrect up, right? Beat death, so to speak. He didn't come again to give us a religion. Man decided to start a religion in his name. He came to offer us a way of being, a way of living with God inside of us, living in the kingdom that is within. He came to guide us. He came breathing through us, helping awaken us as our brother, as our friend, to walk by our side. We can call on him at any time, and he's right there, ready to help us remember what we're doing here. Remember how to step back into presence. He came to show us what it looks like to live from divine identity in the world, not of the world. Even with a human body, he had a human body. Even with human limitations, he had human limitations. And even with human uncertainty, there was uncertainty for Jesus in the details of his life, not the divine mission, but the human part. The journey wasn't linear for Jesus either. And the gift of Christ is not perfection. It's not. That's not the goal. It's presence. The gift is in presence. The present is in the presence. Go figure. Or the present is in the present. The gift that Jesus gave us, the gift of Christ, really is not certainty at all. It's trust. It's trust. It's not found in avoiding the discomfort of the journey. We can't avoid the discomfort. The invitation, again, as we talked about, is to be in the discomfort and to trust, to expand our capacity for trusting, to step deeper into faith and moving through it with God. We are never, ever separate, and we're never alone. And what we remember during Advent and Christmas, what we take time, and, if you're somebody who leans into the more spiritual vibration of this holiday season, not necessarily the man-made version, although the man-made version can be really fun and ways to love on each other, right? But it can also distract us. And we have to be really careful of that distraction, because I think there's quite the paradox there. We've got this holiday season where we overfill our calendars and overspend and stretch our wallets, and it pulls us out of present. So we're missing the actual gift. And we miss that the divine can be born inside of humanity. Right? It can come into our human mess. It can come into the discomfort. And the only way for that to really happen is through presence. So if you're feeling any discomfort, if you're feeling doubt, if you're feeling discouragement, fear, ego, panic, contractions, maybe you're feeling really impatient with your own journey, you're frustrated, you feel like your life is really uncertain right now. It feels really confusing. The future feels incredibly blurry and maybe even scary. And you have this longing, like this deep longing to know what's next, what's next. I mean, that's the discomfort that I've been in. I'm like, I want to know the details. I don't like this discomfort. I want you to hear this. You are on the path. You are absolutely not behind. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are remembering. And the remembering is happening because of the discomfort, not despite the discomfort. This moment that you're in is a holy doorway back into presence, back into God, back into trust, back into the Christ within. My friends, I feel you. I'm walking it with you. We together are walking each other home. If you are desiring a gentle way to really come back into your body and feel God's presence again, I've created a gift for you. It is an at-home mini micro retreat called Calm and Receive. You can do it from home at your own pace. It's meant to soften your nervous system, to quiet your ego, and to really help open up your heart back into the presence and receive presence. There's opening ourselves up to it, but there's a receiving involved in it that really, really enables us to feel the calm. So you can access it in the link in the show notes here. If you're listening to this on any of the podcast platforms, you can message me, you can email me, I'll send it to you. You don't need strength, my friends, to return to God. There is no returning of yourself to God. God is not separate. He's never been separate from you. You just need willingness. It's all about your willingness and your awareness. That's it. That's it. It's so easy. So, so, so easy. And that moment that you turn inward towards God, He's right there. Right there is love. Right there is the unconditional, infinite source of love where all can be found. Until next time, my friends, continue the journey of surrendering and stepping more and more into presence, into the abundant life. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.